familiar with cameras, so
Okay.
yeah. So, Eric Jumper, welcome to the line.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
So
It's a beautiful studio you guys
yeah,
have.
I know. You know, it's an interesting studio. The walls are always moving.
Open
So,
concept.
Yeah, open concept. I like that. Yeah.
Literal open floor plan.
Oh my! So we're both Pennsylvania boys, which is something when I first met you, I really connected on. I was like, somebody else from Pennsylvania when I was in Texas. So
It's funny too, because so you say Pennsylvania boy, and then we're from the same place, but also completely different.
Completely
Which
different.
is the cool thing I like about this state is that you can be from one part of it, and I grew up an hour and a half away from here, and it's a totally different world up north.
It is. It is a totally different
And
world
you go
up north.
another hour and a half north, and it's completely different again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's a cool place. I
It
like
is.
here.
You know, one of the things that I find interesting, although I don't necessarily like the season and temperature that we're in right now, but Pennsylvania has all 4 seasons.
Yes.
Like we get to experience all of them, and that's pretty cool actually. And I didn't realize until I got older and started traveling to different places. It's like not everybody's had that experience.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we kind of being in my position and having kind of been everywhere, and then I've lived in South Carolina for a number of years. We kind of go back and forth about where we want to be, and we end up probably staying here, I think.
Yeah.
Just because it's so well rounded and there's so much to do, and the people are our people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to say that people in South Carolina or anywhere else aren't our people, but this
Well, if
is
you
just-
weren't working in South Carolina, I don't think you will be now. So
Yeah, I mean, well, what it is, what it is, I guess.
I'm just messing with you. Yeah.
No, I like it here. I like it here a lot.
Yeah. I know for me, my wife and I have talked about moving different places, and I love, I love different places here in the States and even around the world. But same thing, I always am coming back to here. And I don't know if it's because I grew up here, but it's like I was in Indiana. My brother lives out there, and I was driving around, and I compare everything to Pennsylvania.
Sure.
You
It's
know,
weird
it's
how
a-
we do that.
It
Yeah.
It is weird. And it's like, oh, that's like, yeah. So, yeah.
It's a state that you can vacation for the rest of your life, and you can be in a different place every time you go on a vacation.
Wow. All right, so we're going to need to actually send some stuff out to the government here to get them to pay us for advertising for their state. My goodness. So I talked with you a little bit about our format and what we do, how we talk about things, but the Blackline and the Line, we exist to lift the view of the skilled trades. That's really what it's about. And skilled trades are pretty much anything that is a trade that you need skill to do, which is a pretty broad brush. And you come from the dirt world. You're a little bit, I don't know if it's famous or infamous.
It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the dirt world. And so we were going to actually do this in our studio, and our creative director is like, yeah, no, you're not. He's like a dirt king. You need to do it outside here.
I love the sound of a track litter going full speed. That is so nice.
So
Sorry.
no, that's why we're out here. And just a shout out to CHN Site, who allowed us to be on their site here, promoting the trades.
Yeah.
So they're a pretty big partner for us in just investing in what we're doing, and a company that's putting their money where their mouth is. So I really appreciate how they've allowed us to be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here to have a conversation that elevates the view of the trades, lets people know what the opportunities are, and just kind of sharing with people, what's going on. Yeah. So I talked with you about our format. So most people know your origin stories, but and you've even said you've had that conversation a lot. But tell me a little bit about how we got in these leather chairs in the dirt in central Pennsylvania.
I think I got this story down in about 3.5 minutes now, so we could probably do it pretty quick.
Go for it.
So, 3rd generation heavy equipment operator. My grandfather, my father, my uncle, my 2 brothers, my cousin. Almost every male member of the family has been involved in heavy equipment in some way, shape, or form. So, growing up, just kind of always been in it, always been around it. Did I have the option to go down a different path? Absolutely. My parents wanted whatever I wanted in life, but it's one of those things when you're kind of in it your whole life, you just are, you're sort of like, where else do I go? You know what I mean?
Right.
My first job, other than cutting grass around the neighborhood, was when I was 14 years old. My dad took me to work one day. The roller operator, I would go to work with him in the summer to drive my RC car around the landfill.
That sounds awesome.
It was fun until the second day when the roller operator didn't show up. And, hey, he's not doing anything. Let's throw him on the roller. So they paid me through my dad's per diem. Because you can't legally pay a 14-year-old to work at the landfill. He doesn't work there anymore, so fuck him.
Yeah, I don't know if paying you through his per diem is legal either, but, whatever.
So did that for the summer. I wouldn't say I fell in love with it, but I was like, that's a pretty okay way to make money.
Yeah.
Did that. There's all kinds of other weird tangents to my life and career and story, but long story short, I spent the better part of 10 years running equipment, running job sites. Before the last job title I held before I left to do the photo, video, media, making memes on the internet thing was operations manager for a site work and paving company in South Carolina.
Okay.
So left there in 2020 to go work for BuildWit, and then I worked at BuildWit for 2.5 years.
I've heard of them.
They're a pretty decent sized company. Was it 2.5 years? Yeah, 2.5 years. October 2020 to July of last year. Yeah, it was 2.5 years. And flew around the country. I kind of learned camera stuff, media stuff, websites, things like that. Got exposure to a lot of different regions of the country and how different companies do things, and just a really, really different path for my career than I ever would have expected.
Right.
And the only thing that really got me there was just kind of, I don't know. As I was growing up, the stuff that I post now and the things that I put out there, man, like 10 years ago, that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like me as a 14-year-old kid, like I've never said this, but I guess this is kind of just like in the back of my mind subconsciously. I make content for 14-year-old me 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Oh my God, 15 years ago. I make content for him.
Right.
Because that didn't exist back then. Like I post these things because I thought they were cool and nobody else was putting it out there. So like I've been posting stuff on Instagram since, oh my God, probably 2012, 2011.
Wow.
And back then it was like, oh, this kid's just posting stuff of his job, you know what I mean? And the only real sort of like blue collar content out there was just like farm kids and stuff. Farmers and, tractors and things. There wasn't this out there. The
closest thing would have been Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
That would have been the closest thing.
And very rarely did he ever have, heavy equipment or...
No,
like
yeah.
All this stuff was just like, it was almost taboo. Like nobody ever talked about it. Nobody ever wanted to look at the dozers. Like up until very recently, construction content stopped when you turned 5 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's really insightful and true.
And you pick it back up when you needed a job because nowhere else would hire you.
Well, don't you think a lot of it even has to do with, like, this company here has allowed us to come out here like this, and we have cameras pointing at their guys doing work.
Sure.
And they know we're going to put them online. There's a huge fear factor. Boy, there's a throwback to a TV show. There's a huge fear factor, for companies to have cameras on their job sites.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely changing because you have an entire business doing that. And we have a team that does that. But there definitely is it's starting to change, but like I talk with people and they're like, no, we don't want you on that job site.
Sure. Yeah, I deal with that every day. I deal with, you can't go here, you can't go there. Please don't talk to this guy. It's been a while. I just had it happen the other day actually, but up until then it's been a while. Guys will just be like straight up, don't take my picture.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
We've had guys say it
Sometimes
way less nicer than that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's never been a nice conversation.
Don't take my picture. Insert whatever expletive you might like.
Yeah. So, yeah, that part of it's tough. However, I'm very familiar with a lot of companies. There are companies that are doing this now that are putting themselves out there that I would have never guessed in a million years they would have been stoked about being online.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's companies that I would have thought would have been online, and you can't find them anywhere.
Right.
So,
right. I think the interesting
both ways.
thing is that those who are getting out there and getting their name out there and promoting themselves in that way, it's a twofold thing. It used to be when I would talk with people, it was about, getting yourself out there where the eyes are for talent and for people and to attract talent. But I think it's even more than that now, because it's like, oh, you're doing that job? Well, then you can do this job. And it's like, especially on like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's like there are eyes there, and people are like, even to the point where I remember years ago, one of the companies that I managed, we got a job, and I didn't understand when we bid work the power of location. And so we got a job in our hometown, and it was at this like interchange of these highways and whatnot that, I forget how many thousands of cars drove by a day, but ridiculous number of cars. And we won so much work from that job.
Sure.
And we've always been big in branding, promoting who we are, trying to look professional, all that stuff. And it's like, so we looked pretty sharp on the job site, and it's like, it was in front of everyone. And we got we would have people calling us up being like, wow, you guys are working over there. Well, we have a job over here. Why don't you take a look at it? And I think that the internet has really become something like that, where it gives us the ability to put your eyes out there. Like right now, we're on a job right now that you and I both drove here. We drove back behind. Like, this is not public in any way, shape, or form for people to see. And so the internet then brings that to light for people, that they can see what's going on.
Sure.
So
yeah, that's a good way to look at it too. I think a lot of the fear is some of it's like safety related. Like, they think that their guys are doing things wrong.
Right.
And there's an argument to that too, where it's like, maybe they shouldn't be doing things wrong, which I get. There's a certain degree of like, okay, we can't follow the rule book in every situation. But the bigger part of the not wanting to be put on blast and put out there is there's this like old school fear of your competitors figuring out how you're doing something, which I think is the dumbest thing in the world, because they already know how you're doing it, because this has been going on for 50 plus years.
Yeah.
Like, we know how to move. Like, everybody's doing the same thing. You're not, unless you've figured out how to re-engineer the wheel. We're moving dirt from A to B. We're putting pipe in the ground. We're blowing things up. We're taking buildings down.
Right.
You can only get so creative. There's situations where, you might find a loophole or something to save some serious money. But for the most part, this is a job that comes with the instructions to do the job and a hard hat. So it's not,
Right. Right.
It's pretty cut and dry most of the time.
Well, and I've been
just
talking.
how much money you can do the job for.
Well, that is what it comes down to. And then what is your competitive advantage to the other guy?
Exactly.
And that is not your processes or things like that. I think the competitive advantage that people look for in organizations is less about how you do the work and more about who you are doing the work.
The competitive advantage of the modern era is getting your workforce to show up.
That's true. Which is why culture and who you are as a company is so important to that, because people have got to believe in it.
Yeah.
They got to believe that there's more to just moving dirt from A to B, that they're a part of building something that matters. And that's a cool part about construction right now and the trades, that I think, even when I started as an apprentice many years ago, more than 15 we'll say, but I'll leave it at that.
You old.
Yeah, well, I'm yeah, anyway. But it was like, we talked about worker shortage and things like that, but COVID has highlighted, and I hate to talk about COVID, but 2020, we'll say it that way, has highlighted the infrastructure problem, the worker shortage, and our lack of interest in investing into maintaining. So we're here in Pennsylvania, and this is a negative about Pennsylvania that I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
In Pennsylvania right now, our state is one of the states that has more roads than any other state in the union. I don't know if it has the most, but we have a lot.
Yeah.
And part of it is when we were founded, and everything was a road.
Yeah.
Every wagon path, every dirt trail over the years, we've paved it in some way, shape, or form, or we haven't, but it's a road. here this year, I would love to know the stats on this, but the amount of bridges that are out in the state of Pennsylvania that they are repairing,
It's nuts.
It is nuts.
Yeah.
Like even there are 2 or 3 bridges around my home right now, just within a 5 to 6 mile radius that are out.
You live local to here?
I do. I live about
What's
5
up
minutes.
with the bridge down the road?
You mean when you're coming down the highway
I was
and it's
filming-
just gone?
You'll see it later on my stories. I was making a video about limousines.
Yeah.
I was making a rant because I've been trying to do like a daily rant because people like when I get mad for some reason because they
Yeah.
don't have to be mad. So I was making a rant about limousines, and I look up and the bridge is just
It's just gone.
It's gone. There's a section of bridge that's not there, and there's no roadwork signs. There's no barriers to stop you from Dukes of Hazzarding your way over the bridge. It's just gone. What happened with that bridge? I need to know before I look it up. Did
Sorry.
somebody steal the bridge?
So this is another great thing about Pennsylvania that is kind of crazy, is that we have started these projects, and it's like we went out and started all these projects, and then we left them and
Yeah.
went to start the next project, because that's been there for months like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Because there's also over here somewhere. There's isn't there like the it's called the goat path or something, like the highway to nowhere? It's
So-
just like a grass highway.
Geographically, it's probably more that way,
Yeah.
but yes, it's the. I literally, when I was a kid growing up, there was a farmer that actually built some of his barn out into the goat path, and then he would just let his cows out there. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. No, Pennsylvania's messed up like that.
Yeah.
Now, I will say there are, I would say this year, they have taken quite a bit of initiative to take on a lot bigger project and a lot more projects. There's more construction going on in my immediate area than I've
Oh
ever
my.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
So I will commend them for that. They're spending a lot of money to do things, but I don't know. I do think there's a lot of
do you know?
oversight and waste.
That's not this podcast.
Yeah.
Do you know when I was a kid, and I think it got maybe, depending on our age differences, it might not have been around, but there was a highway out your way called the Highway to Nowhere.
Oh, in Centralia?
Yeah.
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 I live about 20 minutes from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's gone. They covered that.
Okay.
So it was called Graffiti Highway.
Mm.
So they let me see if I can remember this right. My grandfather used to work at that. He used to work for that company way back in the day. It's owned by Pagnotti. So the land is actually owned by Pagnotti, which is a mining company. They used to be. I don't remember if the highway relocation was due to the Centralia fire.
I think it was actually.
I can't remember if it was that or if it was. I think they moved the highway to mine where the highway was, and they never did. But anyway, they closed the highway, and there's the highway that goes around the highway, and it was called Graffiti Highway because people would just go there and paint the road. Closed it and covered it with dirt in 2020 because it became because nobody could do anything, nobody can go anywhere,
Right.
but outside. So it was just like it looked like a national park of people out there, and they ended up like causing traffic jams and stuff on the roads. So Pagnotti was like, "We're gonna cover this with dirt now."
Jeez.
That was a big story back. 2020.
Well, I mean,
People were
Centralia
mad about that.
in general is an interesting story. A lot of people, it's been burning as long as I've been alive, more than 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's going to burn for probably another 50 or 60 years, they say.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than that. I don't know. If you YouTube it, you'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah. There's
So-
man, I could talk about Schuylkill County coal mines for hours.
Well, let's take a break because we don't. You said the clock is that line of sun that is ever approaching us.
Yeah, it's getting close.
So, I always ask people this question. It's a pretty easy one. What is a tool or a piece of gear that Eric can't live without? You need to have with you no matter where you are. If it's the last thing on earth, that sort of thing. If you could pick one thing.
I'm torn between an AK-47 and my boots. Probably my boots.
Tell me the why behind that statement.
I think I'm just trying to think of the one thing that like I don't not have, and it's usually that. It's
Yeah.
like, I'll forget my name. I'll forget my phone. Like, and the thing with the phone is that like that's useless if
Yeah.
anything happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's got to be that. I mean I've had these boots for 2 years.
What are you wearing? I mean,
I only wear Thorogoods. I buy the same Thorogoods. I've been buying the same Thorogoods for like 8 years.
my son has been working his first trade job
Yeah.
and his first job this summer.
Yeah.
And so his for his birthday, he got a pair of Thorogoods.
They
loves them.
They make a great boot. Everybody, the boot conversation is basically the same as like the car conversation. Like my car breaks down less than your car breaks down. Same thing with the boots. Everybody likes to have their preference. This is what I like.
Just to be difficult, I'm wearing a very similar boot, but it's Red Wing. But
Yep, and it's it's a piece of leather that wraps around your foot at the end of the day. I like these because I never really had like nice boots until I probably until I turned like 20, and I started working for this company that required steel toes. I was like, okay, I'll get a nice pair of steel toes. So instead of going to like Boot Barn, I went to this like small Italian boot guy, this boot seller in Allentown.
Gucci boots in Allentown.
I wish it was. I really wish I was telling you right now about my Gucci cowboy boots that I have on, but I'm not quite there yet. So I walk in, this guy, like, I tell him what I need, and he's like, broken English, like, you need this boot. This is what you want. I'm like, okay, and I put it on. It was like the best boot I ever had. It was the same model of boot 4 boots ago. So I think footwear is a really important part of the trades specifically, and
I agree.
I think I feel like it could probably be done better. Like I like these boots a lot. Don't get me wrong. Thorogood, please sponsor me. Please, I'm begging you. I'm tired of paying for boots, but they're comfortable. They last a long time. If I so like if you notice like the soles are really worn out.
Yeah.
And the backside from driving, I get.
Oh my gosh, you do a lot of driving.
Isn't that nuts? So if I wanted to send these boots in, it's like half the cost of buying new boots.
They'll resole them for you.
They'll redo the whole boot. They'll restitch it.
Really?
They'll put new laces in it. They'll fix all of the only thing they won't do is like the leather starting to crack here. So they'll condition the leather, but like they're already broken in. So that's the big thing is like people want to keep their broken in boots.
Oh man, that's
huge.
That is the thing.
So I can get another 2 years out of these boots.
Yeah.
Which is great. So that's great. I just think that there's for sure, like most things in our life, there are probably some advancements to be made in the footwear department to make life more comfortable. I don't know what those things are. That's why I'm not making footwear and I'm not a bazillionaire. But somewhere out there is an idea floating around about how we can make construction footwear better. And not, hey, that's the same. Like
Right.
we just said, that's the same as this.
I think that's one of the things that I find really interesting about technology is, yeah, there's been a lot of advancements, but there's been a lot of the things that haven't advanced. Like you were struggling back and forth between, is your one thing a gun or a boot? And one of my favorite guns is a 1911 45.
Yeah.
And the model of the gun
It's in the name.
is in the name. It hasn't really changed in a couple hundred years.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, really? Or what would that be? 100 years.
100 years.
So
Yeah,
I can do math.
Yeah.
This is why I don't do estimating anymore.
It's 157 years.
Yeah.
Overestimate. Just shoot high. I mean, so that excavator back there,
Yeah.
that design has been the same since the birth of excavators. It's a bucket, a stick, and an arm. The way that the stick and the arm moves has changed once. It used to be cables. Now it's hydraulics. You got a comfier cab. You got a different engine. You have a different exterior look.
Yeah.
The style of the machine is exactly the same.
Do you think that
It
we're going to
hasn't
see changes in the future here related to that, and why is it that we're not seeing changes in some of these technologies?
Well, again, if you notice, so if you really dig into it, the general appearance of excavators, and you could say this about almost any piece of heavy equipment, the general appearance about excavators and heavy equipment has been the same, pretty much since the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
So we're talking almost 30 years that
they look almost the same.
Because manufacturers don't want to. Sorry, throw you under the bus, but nobody wants to try.
You're not throwing me under the bus.
Nobody wants to try anything new anymore.
Right.
The same thing with car companies.
Probably because it's risky.
Because it's risky, and the investors don't like it.
Yeah.
Why change what ain't broke? It
Yeah.
still digs a hole.
Yeah. True.
And realistically, what could you change about it? That's my...
Yeah.
I have this argument all day long with my 4 personalities. I sit there and I argue about... here's how it goes. I'll drive. I'll see an excavator. I'll start thinking for a while. Man, I haven't changed that in a while. They should really change that. What would they change it to? I guess they couldn't. Keep driving. There's an excavator. They should change that. What would they change it to? I guess they can't really change it. So it just keeps going like that for a while.
Your mind must just be rolling quite a bit.
It's a nightmare in here. Get me out.
Well, let's talk about that. Not your mind. Well, maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
But I was doing some research on you, and the biggest thing that I think I've pulled out of, and I know you from afar, but the biggest thing that I see about you, who Eric Jumper is you're an entrepreneur at heart. Like, and maybe I'm wrong in that, but let me explain why. I was listening to a podcast, and you talked about, man, you started a business here, you did this there, and you're like, you got to be stupid to start a business. Like, you're like, you got to be crazy because the stress is so ridiculous. And now here you are again, and now you have your own business again, and you're doing it again.
I had given that up for a while.
And you're doing more than one thing.
So, yeah, I hate that part too. Here's the thing. I probably would not have started a business again if I didn't see the need. So that's why, like, now I'm gonna be stepping on some eggshells here because this is tough to say, but like, I don't want to discourage anybody from starting their own company, but I have not. I dream all the time about starting another earth moving company, landscaping company, trucking company, whatever. At the end of the day, when I really like, I'll sit down, I'll spend a whole day crunching numbers on like, I think about triaxle trucking a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to get back into triaxle trucking, mainly just because I like trucks.
Right.
I really miss having trucks.
Right.
And
that says a lot coming from a guy that drove a dump truck to high school.
Yes, exactly. So I sit there and I think about like, what would it cost? Where can I send them? I got plenty of places that could work the truck. I would need to find drivers. There's a stress of keeping employment up and keeping the truck moving. But at the end of the day, it's like, is this what I need to do? Like, is this going to provide value in the Blackhawk?
We actually scheduled that for the podcast.
Are they going to jump? Are they going to parachute onto us?
Yeah, they have Caterpillar parachutes. They're going to be.
Sick.
Yeah, all
diesel-powered parachute.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I was thinking more of a silk parachute with the Caterpillar logo on it, but
no, the parachute is a diesel engine.
That would. Not all your ideas are good ideas.
So, like, I can't, in my brain, I can't justify going out and starting a business if I don't see like a massive need for it.
Right.
And that's the thing that I come into with like there's a lot of regions I can go to and start a business and be successful. That's one of the things that Pennsylvania doesn't necessarily have that a lot of other states have going on is the mass amount of people coming in, the mass amount of construction going on.
Right.
I cannot start the same business here that I could in the Carolinas or Florida.
I can agree with that. I've seen that.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't take into account is you want to start a business and you can be as successful as you want to be with your business. But at the end of the day, it's tractor work and you need a place for the tractors to work.
Yeah.
So if there's not enough work going on in your area, you either have to steal the work from another existing company because the work's already getting done.
Right.
For the most part, in places that don't have a lot going on or they don't have an influx of new work going on like they do in the South, you're going to fight. You're going to fight, and that's what happened when we had our family business up in Northeast PA.
That's one of the things with Pennsylvania that I think has been really helpful for me is everywhere else seems easier.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's like we have to fight for it here. Like we're in one of the states that's been around since the founding of our country, so there's a lot of people.
Some guy in Florida is punching the ceiling in his car right now because he's like, I have it hard. I have it hard. I know.
This is true, and it's because it's way hotter there.
It is.
And Florida is not another state. That's like another world.
It is.
So
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
whole other podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Well, how does it work with some of the things? So like you're running a business now, and you've had a lot of like milestone things happen in the past few years. Like you got married. That changed.
Oh, that's not even just in the past year.
That changes your life.
Yeah.
And then in the past few months, you are now welcome to fatherhood.
Yes.
You are a dad.
Yep.
So like
3 months ago. 3
you-
months today.
today. Congratulations.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, I remember, and forgive me, boy or girl.
Girl.
So my first was a girl. I'll never forget when I held her in my arms. My brother had said to me, he said, I can't even explain to you what it's going to feel like.
Yeah. It's
And
weird.
It is.
Yeah.
And I remember holding her, and it was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. Especially after all that happened to get the baby out.
Yeah.
That's, again, a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But,
It's really interesting how that
oh, well, you went through it too.
Changes
you guys
your-
all went through the same thing.
changes your
talked about this.
perspective on life.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, and
Yes.
you wouldn't think the closest thing that I could compare it to is I bought my first house when I was 18, and I'd worked out this budget, and people said to me, you know, you can plan and plan and plan, but it's going to cost more than you think. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'll never forget, I'd been in my house like a week, and I sat down, I'm like, holy crap,
Yeah.
I don't have enough. How am I going to do this?
Yeah. I
We-
can apply that to anything I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always good. I can go to the gas station. It's going to cost more than I plan to. It is funny how it works like that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how have all those things affected Eric Jumper in his life and where he's at and what he's doing? Because that's a whole new level
You
of
know-
things to deal with.
Aside from the guilt of like traveling,
Yeah.
it's really kind of been business as usual,
Really?
to be perfectly honest. The life part, that's a very natural, like, I was expecting all that stuff to be harder.
Yeah.
And it's really just kind of been the easiest thing I've ever done. It's just kind of being a parent and like being at home and like doing all that stuff. That I wish that was my full-time job,
Yeah, me too.
because I love doing that. The business thing that's where the majority of my stress generates and the majority of my thought lies.
Like it consumes your thought life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that has a hard time like detaching from, especially when you own two businesses. It's really hard to like draw the line of like
Yeah.
where do you split your time? Like when do you stop and, you know, hang out with the family or go do something? Or like yesterday is a great example. I was the baby woke up at 3 in the morning.
Nice.
So I was up basically until my wife woke up. And then she took her at 8. And then I started, you know, I basically sat in front of my computer until 4. And she came into the garage at like 5:30. She's like, hey, we should go to the movies. Which is a movie I want to see. I'm like, oof, I really have all this stuff I want to do. And it's like, I don't realize how long I'm sitting there. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of that happens where I'm like, I don't, like, where do you draw the line? And kind of getting back to that was like, that was one of the reasons. Like I had told myself I never wanted to go back into business for myself, and here we are, many years later.
I listened to a podcast recently where you said those exact words.
Yeah, yes. Was it a recent one or an older one?
2020.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I was determined to, and that was one of the things was like I wanted to be on a set schedule, because that's something you get when you work for somebody else. You can work the hours that you're set to work for the most part, and you don't have to work until midnight on something that, you know, I'm my own worst enemy, so I'll go
Right.
make a project and I'll have to work on until midnight. But the only reason I'm doing this is because, number one, I can't financially get to where I want to be in life without doing this, unless I went and, you know, became like the CEO of BlackRock or something.
That would be pretty cool.
You know, people talk a lot of smack on BlackRock, but I think it'd be pretty bitchin'.
Yeah.
Run the world. Be awesome. So there's that. I have recognized the elevated ceiling of financial possibility of being your own boss. But also, these are two businesses that live out of necessity, and they are only successful to a degree. Nothing I do is successful. They only exist in prosperity because there's a generous amount of need for them.
Interesting.
And we could talk about them individually because they're both totally different topics. Because
Why don't, for those listening, do you mind telling us what they are?
so we have High Track Media, which is now becoming GM Site, which is a joint venture between me and my friend Brad. So that is a media-specific company that I used to say exclusively works with the blue-collar construction industry, but we've kind of started branching out into other avenues because why not?
Yeah.
It's cool to look at something other than bulldozers once in a while. I don't know if we'll necessarily get into different trades, but
Well, as you said earlier, there's plenty of them out there.
yeah.
I mean, and there's whether whoever it is that we're talking with, it's like there's plenty of work out there. We don't need to. What did you say to me? We were on the phone one day, and you commented to me these stats on because you've called us and given us work.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, 'cause I
encouraged.
can't do it all.
Yeah, and so
There's 280 some thousand construction-based companies, and that's everything. That's like landscapers, it's carpenters, it's anybody that started an LLC or corporation based in construction in the United States, active right now. I work with 15 of them.
well, I was gonna say you
when
can
you-
have 200,000. I'll take 80, and we'll be good.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I
Yeah. Well, that's
could never.
yeah.
And it's I don't know. They all want what everybody else has.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I struggle a little bit with. That's part of the reason why I want to start branching out. Is just because we're starting to bump into each other in a lot of places. Well, my companies are starting to bump into each other in places. So there's only so many companies you can kind of take on and
Right.
not work for the competition,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the weird, nuanced, tricky things about this very specific niche industry.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
working for the competition, which is a very touchy subject with people. So that business provides media and social media management, marketing consulting, things like that to companies.
Sweet.
Tier 0 is a living, breathing joke that has turned into a successful merchandise company.
So what kind of merch? Like I've seen stickers and things like that. But what,
It's stickers, hats, shirts. We're kind of looking into a lot of weird stuff like flip-flops and sun hats, things like that, just to kind of...
I think I saw one of your stickers. It says something like your Tesla is powered by coal or something like that.
Yes, I have one if you want it.
I do.
It's in the truck.
I do.
That's something else that I've recently removed the guardrails on.
Yeah.
So just like the media company where let's remove the guardrails of being in the construction industry. Hey, let's remove the guardrails of Tier 0 of being a very specific niche anti-emissions company.
Right.
Let's just make it whatever idea I have in my brain company.
Wow.
So I have a sticker on the back of my truck that says, honk if you eat asbestos.
You got to explain that to me. I saw that.
It's there's no explanation. It's a lot of like ironic jokes. Like, obviously I'm not going to eat asbestos. Maybe. The EPA sold me fentanyl. Just stuff like that. Like whatever. It appeals to like this new generation of I call it ridiculous thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's something you would never do or something that would never happen. But it's like legalize recreational nuclear weapons. They might do that, but
Okay.
they probably won't.
They might do that. I'll put money on that. They probably won't.
Yeah.
But you know.
So, that has made that company a lot more fun.
Yeah.
taking out the, because it used to be like a lot of, I've got to think of this really specific funny joke for like how to make fun of an SCR system on a diesel engine. So it's a brand that sort of encompasses my generation in all these industries, who and the reason that company is successful is because there's nobody there to represent like me from 10 years ago.
So you're really trying to represent that 14 to 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you maybe even further.
24-year-old kid, 25-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the reason like why Whistle and Diesel is so successful, because it's the same exact thing. Like he's representing this generation and kind of creates content for those people. And it's just whatever wacky idea he's got, he goes and does it.
I think one of the things that I'm fascinated about the time in which we live is, and you talked about this, like what we do today didn't exist, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
10 years ago.
My job didn't exist 6 years ago.
And it's like, it's always, I was listening to a podcast the other day and with Turner Mining, Keaton Turner was talking, and he talked about how Instagram is different. It's not the same.
Yeah.
You can't do what you did on Instagram 5 years ago.
Yeah. And
it's like, it's a little hard for me in my mind to wrap my head around how fast things are moving.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people can feel like they're behind, but it's like, I think you just got to go for it. And it's like, there's always going to be the competitors and other people doing stuff, but it's like, you want to go for your competitive advantage.
Yep.
And you want to be in that learn and grow mindset, not in that protect and defend, that fear mindset, which we've talked about a little bit here. Eric, one of the things that Keaton said on the podcast, which this was a pretty big shout out. And when I was listening to this, I was actually just listening to this past weekend. I didn't even know that we were going to be sitting down today. And he's like, Eric Jumper, the what he posts and the way that he's posting is, how did he say it? But he was encouraging people that that's what they should be, going after. And then he even went a little farther and I think it's not necessarily your posts, because like if you look at Blackline's feed or your feed, they're very different.
Sure.
And I think what he was saying is go after what it is that is you and be authentic.
And that's, I was going to make a rant about this the other day, but I couldn't fit it into like I try to make them as short as possible, and I couldn't fit it into like 1 minute. This kind of piggybacks off that, and shout out to Keaton and Turner Mining, because they're great people over there. My mic is falling off. Is that supposed to do that?
Help from the other people. His mic's falling off.
Yeah, hex key.
Yeah. Eric Jumper has broke the podcast.
I don't even know how that's possible. I got it back in, but it still probably needs to be tightened a little bit. I'm gonna keep talking while he's doing this.
Yeah.
I think that's funny. So maybe I'm not.
No, I can still hear you. I mean, you could lean a little closer into his face there. So
screw or heck?
here at the line, our podcast is real and authentic. We don't edit anything.
I consume a lot of content. I doom scroll a lot. I spend up to 8 hours a day looking at my phone.
Now you can't hear him, which is the only way that we were able to actually get Eric to shut up is to cut off his mic. So.
Oh, that works too. Oh, wow.
So it's lefty loosey, righty tighty, just so you know. Jake has always wanted to be on the podcast, and so he actually prepped that mic to fall off so that he could get on camera. I think everybody's going to appreciate that you unplugged that while you threaded on there. Yeah.
Why didn't I get the good mic to start with? What happened here?
Because it's my podcast. So
You should have a golden mic.
there we go, a golden mic. So, as they do that, I'm just going to continue to talk Eric is wearing a really cool shirt that I like. I got to figure out what brand that is because I love that. So, yeah, there we go. Now you can say what your shirt is.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I got this shirt. People don't know this, but the reason I actually moved.
Jake, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. The reason I moved to South Carolina was so that I could go to Palmetto State Armory every day,
Oh yeah,
which was like 10 minutes down the road for me.
I have quite a few of their products. I love their stuff.
So they, when you go to the actual store, it's a different experience. It's kind of like going to the outlet mall.
Oh,
So they have like all kinds of different. They have like a lot of fishing stuff and all. So this is actually a shirt that is locally made in South Carolina and sold. So far, I've only seen it at Palmetto State Armory, but like sold there.
that's pretty cool.
I'm addicted to duck camo.
Well, I love duck camo.
I
It
love
is
duck
awesome.
camo. I'm so glad that duck camo is making a comeback.
Yeah.
It might be a dying trend at this point because this was like 4 years ago, but
So I like duck camo, and then there's that like Pacific World War II Marine Corps theater camo,
Mhm.
which
I got one of those shirts.
I
was
love as
torn
well.
between those two today.
Yeah.
I've looked into making a shirt like this through Tier Zero, but they're very expensive, and it's a story for another day.
So can you remember where you were? Or
So I
did
can.
Okay.
Because I'm still pissed about it. So I consume a lot of content. One of my least favorite types of content to be presented with by the algorithm. There's this group of influencers, right, that seem to think they have the algorithm of social media platforms figured out. My hands are going to start doing stuff because I'm mad about this. They make this content that sort of appeals to the weak-minded that aren't on social media enough to understand that what you do doesn't really matter. So they make these videos about how you need to do this specific thing and you need to make this specific post at this specific time, which, to their credit, some of that matters.
Right.
And I have to say that because it is my job at the end of the day to understand these platforms. And
Right.
there is a certain degree of doing it the right way. Like, maybe don't make a post at 3:27 in the morning. Okay? Or
I wondered what I was doing wrong.
yeah, that could be totally part of it. Or don't make 10 posts a day, or there's specific ways to go about it. But when it comes to like do this specific thing, use this amount of hashtags, comment on this many posts, I promise you it's all smoke and mirrors. They're just making content to get views on their own channel. The only way to successfully make a social media account is to make content that people actually want to see.
Ooh.
And sometimes making that content is just being you,
That's the truth.
or being what your company is, or showcasing your people in a natural way. So like I won't do standoff tripod interview shots on client sites anymore.
Why is that?
It's not natural. I will mic them up even if the sound sucks,
Right.
because at the end of the day, it's all social media.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff lives on social media. People are scrolling past it. You have less than 10 seconds, if not 5, to capture their attention. So if I can make it as realistic and compelling as possible, I'm giving away some of the secret sauce here. You're only getting one of my 13 herbs and spices.
Oh man, I was going to ask you another question.
Just making it real and authentic.
Yeah.
It's something I've learned in
Yeah.
doing this. Is like it might sound weird. It might be uncomfortable for people, but like they're not going to open up if they're standing like this doing an interview.
Well, especially not the people in these machines. They're not.
Most of the people that we document have not had a professional photo or video taken of them since they had their high school photos.
Yeah. Right.
Isn't that crazy to think about? Or since they got married.
Yeah.
So
That is insane. Well, not to mention, that's one thing, but that's a photo. Then have them talk to you while they're being filmed.
yes,
I've watched some of the coolest and most strong and powerful guys go to mouse status
yep,
when it's like, oh, there's a lens there. And I understand it because I wasn't really on camera till about a year ago.
yeah,
And it's like the only way to get comfortable with it is to do it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, when I was listening to this podcast, they're talking about all sorts of different things, but the one thing they didn't talk about, and maybe this is one of the herbs and spices that we're not going to get.
Sure.
Maybe we should start calling you the Colonel. I think that would,
I
since
thought about dyeing my hair gray.
you could do that, but then you need to wear white. So
I couldn't do that. I wear dark specifically to hide the stains.
maybe you could do a inverted KFC Colonel outfit.
Like a blackout.
A blackout with a white tie instead of a black tie. Anyway, my question, as we got sidetracked, man, getting in your head is a little scary. I almost got lost in there.
We were watching this movie last night at the movie theater, and at the end of it, there was a pastor, Deep South Baptist pastor, and he had his pastor. What do you call that shirt that they wear?
Oh,
with the thing.
Yeah,
and then he had blue
crop or
overalls
something
on.
like that. Blue overalls.
It was the sickest outfit I've ever seen in
Yeah,
my life.
yeah.
I want to copy it so bad. Anyway,
my question is, you talked about the algorithm, you talked about all of that stuff. A lot of people are curious about, I think it was like a year ago, you had like 260,000 followers,
yeah.
and you have a little bit more than that now. More than double, I think.
A lot of it is really stupid stuff.
Okay.
So I've gotten a lot of success from really dumb stuff that people don't get to see a lot. And that's it's kind of the unfair advantage that I have is I have untethered access to a lot of places that people can't even fathom going.
Right.
And I've only gotten there by dumb luck. I don't know anybody. I've never grown up with these people. I don't have any ties to these places that I go.
Right.
I just kind of show up and ask them, hey, can I come in, please?
Yeah.
Can I hang out? Or a lot of the companies that I work for do a lot of cool stuff. So I won't work for you unless you do cool stuff. That's a very specific
That is a very specific.
That's a hard line that you have to meet. So if you don't do cool stuff, I'm not really interested. But yeah, I mean, it's I've seen a lot of growth. I've kind of figured out a few things with changing my content up and making it more interactive, making it even more authentic. Since I've left Build It, I've kind of even further removed my fences.
Right.
So the goalpost is wherever I want it to be now, and I don't know. I can kind of do whatever I want.
That's pretty cool.
And I think that's kind of what differentiates what I'm doing a little bit.
Yeah.
Is just doing whatever.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you are definitely doing whatever, and it's been hard to kind of lock you down to get you sitting in this chair because
it's taken a couple of months.
It has taken a couple of months. Well, the best part was you reached out, I think, after our first episode with Marvin, and you're like, hey, if you ever need a podcast guest. And so then I followed up with you. You're like, yeah, not now. Nope, not now.
Yeah.
Nope, didn't work now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. No, I can't.
Yeah.
So I think you've been a little busy. Just to change it up a little bit here, I have two questions that I want to ask you yet, and then I can see that the line of the sun is
it's getting really close.
Getting close.
Yeah.
But I'm okay. So this is a little bit of a deep question. I was on a podcast recently, and someone asked me this question, and I was like, "Oh wow, that I never thought about that." So I'm going to ask you, and you can make it serious. You can make it whatever you want it to be. It can be crazy. I actually have no idea where you're going to go because I've learned that you do have 4 or 5 people inside your head there.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked you a question thinking you're going here, and you're over there.
Yeah.
Which is cool and also concerning.
Sure.
But
there's no meds for this condition.
who's your hero?
Ooh, who's my hero? Wow. I don't know if I have any heroes.
Ouch. Really?
I don't
Who do you want to emulate, be like, or who do you look up to? Who's someone that's impacted you in your life in a positive way?
So I do take a lot after my father, my grandfather, and my family in general. But I've gotten to a lot of places because of how I was raised. And I guess if I put a label on it, I guess my dad would be my hero. I hate using the term hero, though, because I don't like putting I feel like a bit of guilt, like putting people on a pedestal sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel like it with the wrong person, it's like too much for them sometimes. Like they don't want to have to live up to that. You know what I mean?
I do. I think you're articulating something that, so the question was asked me, and even when I asked you the question, it's like, I do wish that I could come up with a different way to ask it, because when you talk about the pedestal thing, when I was younger, I would put people on pedestals.
Yeah.
And over life, I've learned that's not fair to them or to me when I do that, because we're all people and we're all imperfect. And so inevitably, they're going to fail you in that way.
Yeah.
Whether and I don't know your dad, but like even in my family, like whoever my parents have failed me, but they've also been there for me. You know, I've failed my kids, and full disclosure, man, you're going to make mistakes with your daughter.
Well, and it's funny. I'm like sitting here processing this now, and I'm like looking at it from my lens, and then I'm like, well, do I want my daughter? Do I want to be the hero of my daughter? It's like, no, I don't know if I do, because I don't want her to. I want her to be successful, and I want to have a great relationship with my family and my children. But I don't know if I'm the one that needs to be the hero for them.
I think
you need to be your own hero.
I think for me, I want my family to be proud of me.
Yeah.
You know, which is something like I've always wanted, you know, I did a podcast with a guy, and he talked about the reason that he took over the family business. The reason that he did what he did was because he wanted his dad to be proud of him. But it's like, there's something about, I can remember in business, I was absolutely 100% failing. And I was at home and I was struggling, and I was talking with my wife, and she has no idea how much this affected me. But she looked at me and she said, no matter what happens, I want you to know I'm proud of you.
Wow.
And it was like, she was proud of the way I was handling the situation. She was proud of who I was in the moment. And it's like, that's what I want to strive for.
Yeah.
I want to strive for that. And so when you talk about your daughter, this is the same with my daughter. She just graduated this year. And it's like, I don't want to be her hero either, but I do want her to be proud of me. And
that's exactly, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's like, my parents did a great job with us. I think just the fact that I, have this successful life and career and family, and I'm not doing fentanyl on the streets, like that's the bar. It's got to be the bar, not.
You're the first person on the podcast to admit that you're not doing fentanyl on the streets, so I'm glad for that.
Is that because they've said they are, or because there's plausible deniability?
Well, this is where I've entered into a conversation with you where I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So
yes. So I don't know.
So let's flip the question like this. Wow, so I do this thing sometimes where we get to dangerous questions, and you don't have to answer it, but let's flip it like this. Are you proud of your dad?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, very much so.
There you go. I think the thing that I don't like about the hero question is sometimes that limits, it puts people on a pedestal, as you said.
Sure.
And it's like, when I was asked the question, I was like, wow, there's so many people. And it's like, this person affected me in this way, this person affected me in this way. And it's like, so, I mean, I think the statement is that we want people to be proud of us.
Well, yeah, and I'm proud of my mom and my dad. Like, they've both, I think that's one thing that older generations of both sides of my family have done is they've, man, my mom might be the first one in her family to go to college.
Wow.
Now that I'm thinking about it. And I can't remember what she's going to school for now. I think she's going for her doctorate. But like both of them, and same thing with my dad. Like my dad is, always strived to, he's the operations manager for a 300 employee company.
Wow.
That does all of the dirt work in Reno.
Wow.
So like the fact that they've never been comfortable in their life, and they've always gone out of their way to
always striving,
give us as we were 4 children close together in age, And growing up, we always had a pretty great life. We lived probably above our means just because they wanted us to, not live in a trailer. They didn't want us to live in the streets. Like we lived in a town that we probably, didn't quite meet the income standards for if you started looking at the neighbors. But they worked their asses off to get us there. So, yeah, I'm proud of them.
This segues really well into my last question.
Sure.
What is a mistake? Sorry, the big truck driving by. Eric's distracted.
It's got miter cut stacks. It's pretty neat.
I love, like, you're so experienced in this world. You walked up and you start talking with the guy and spouting off excavator numbers, and I'm like, okay, so that's Spanish. So it's like, all right. It's like I literally went from feeling like, my 25 some years in construction,
Sure.
like I had some sort of authority, to feeling like, wow, I'm the newbie.
Yeah.
Great. I'm green. I'm the.
Oh, sorry
yeah.
to speak a foreign language in front of you.
That's all right.
Rude of
It
me.
put me in my place. It humbled me, which was good.
Okay.
What is a mistake that Eric Jumper has made that he would want to share with people that they might be able to learn from and not make the same mistake?
So probably one of my biggest failures in life is the first business, and that was our family landscaping excavating company. And I think one of my biggest failures was just in general messing that whole ordeal up. And it's not, I can't put it all on me because I was young and I didn't really have any experience in other places. But I think sort of not taking that seriously enough.
Yeah.
Because I was in the driver's seat and ran it into the ground, which was one of the reasons why I was so scared to start,
Right.
another company. And I think, I guess that's my biggest mistake, is just not doing that as good as I could have. But the interesting thing is that I couldn't be here now if I didn't mess all that up. So
Yeah.
So my biggest mistake led me to the lowest point in my life, which then sort of put me on this train of getting to here. And I don't know if that's a train going up or a lateral train, or it could be a train downhill. I don't know yet. But it's something that the mistakes that I made while doing that, I continue to pull from that book every day of should I do this? Well, no, we did this over here and it wasn't necessarily right. And then you kind of apply different judgment based on past experience.
Yeah.
So my biggest mistake was making mistakes, but mistakes need to happen in order to move forward.
Yeah, they do. Hardship is not a bad thing. I think what you're talking about is when you feel like you're at the bottom or you're in the pit or you're at your low point,
Yeah.
is not quitting and acknowledging that as long as you don't quit, those things are something that are going to help propel you to the next place in life.
Yeah. And a great example of a takeaway from something like that was, when we had nicer equipment. We had a really nice Bobcat mini excavator.
Yeah.
And I trashed that thing because I took it for granted.
Yeah.
It was always a mess. I don't think I ever cleaned it. The thought of, when I was 18 years old, the thought of cleaning an excavator, like you would detail a car, was so unordinary to me that it wasn't even fathomable. Why would I clean it? It's a piece of equipment. And then losing all of that and not having that and then having to start over. And, after all that, I took some time off and I, went and worked in the ski industry. And then I worked for an earth moving company up in Allentown. And they gave me a really nice machine. They gave me a pretty new scraper to run. And I detailed that thing weekly.
Yeah.
And when you have nice things you take for granted and then you lose them and you slowly gain them back, I take my things more seriously now.
Yeah.
I take my personal possessions that I work so hard to get a lot I take a lot better care of them now because I see what I've put into getting them. That was probably my biggest takeaway is just like
So you would say don't take those things for granted.
Don't take anything in life for granted, really.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Prophetic wisdom.
Yeah. Well, I see that the clock is fast approaching.
It's right here.
It's here. Eric, I so appreciate you coming down here.
Yeah.
Out on this, job site. Although I have learned, if you want to do a podcast with Eric Jumper, just sprinkle in some heavy equipment, and he cannot resist temptation.
This is probably the best podcast I've ever done, just because of that.
So,
yeah.
The track loaders and the I want to spout some numbers off that you were spouting off earlier that I can't remember, but
I
whatever.
mean, there's they have a 963. There's a 160. There's a 210 over there.
See?
They have a 520 Steiger.
Now he's just showing off.
28.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where should I send the bill?
Where should the bill? What was that company in? No, that was going to be inappropriate. I wasn't going to say that. Yeah. No, thank you so much for your time.
No,
I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
And good deal.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
Sorry, that was a little longer.
Oh, that's all right.
Dude, that was great.
Yeah.
Seriously, I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you having me out.
I didn't want to say this on camera. I almost said you could say that.